Welcome to Disruptive Capitalists, the show where purpose-driven entrepreneurs and bold investors share how they're reshaping the world by investing time and money in a way that improves lives and creates wealth. So let's get to it. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us for another great episode of Disruptive Capitalist Podcast. My guest today is Jens Nielsen, who, after more than 25 years in the IT and telecom world, reached a point in his mid-40s, I understand that, midlife crisis, you might want to say, realized that financial stability alone wasn't enough. He wanted more control over his time and a greater sense of contribution. That search for meaning is drastically important. So that set him on a different path down into the world of commercial real estate investing. And what started out with small deals became larger and larger deals. Now you're invested in over 2,700 apartments, $250 million worth of real estate, and you built your own portfolio. And now you've gotten into consulting and helping and teaching others how to perform highly in real estate. Jens, thank you for joining the show.
Oh, thanks, Sam. I'm excited about being here today.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about who is Jens? Where did you come from? Why are you here? And where are you going?
I mean, as people may notice, my name and my slight accent is not from this country, right? But I've been here for 30 years, as we just talked about in the pre-recording. Came here in my early 20s and did the typical, got my education, worked for the different companies in the corporate world, from small startups to large corporations to city governments to Native American tribes. My last job was for a Native American tribe. And, had a great life in the sense that, me and my wife are both working. We had good income. And, my time when I wasn't at the office was spent on exploring and traveling and bicycle racing and things like that, right? So had just kind of lived a comfortable life. But as you said, like in the mid-40s, that midlife crisis, some go out and buy a sports car. I was like, my crisis was, shit, I don't want to do this another 20 plus years, right? I don't want to work for the man for another 20 years. And I already felt like, this was even before the AI revolution. I was like, there's so many things changing so quickly in IT that this is going to be, I don't want to keep up with this. I don't want to put all this energy into learning all these new things for my boss or my company to just make profit on it. I had to do something for myself. And then that's what led into real estate. 10 years ago is when I started that investing journey.
10 years ago was a great time to get in. I mean, that was really when the market started kind of climbing out of the hole that 2008 left. It took 10 years just to kind of recover. I know a lot of people have lost money in real estate. A lot of people. I've lost some money in real estate. Others have lost money in real estate. I've seen billions of dollars go poof once the, and of course, it's always, somebody else's fault. But when you look at the government saying, hey, let's just go ahead and increase interest rates by 525% over, 18 months, the fastest rate increase ever. A lot of people like to leave that out. Like, well, we raised interest rates higher, but not that fast. It's the market can't adjust. And when you can't adjust it in time, you just get smacked against a brick wall. So people who are listening to this saying, Jens, I get you, but real estate is on a downward spiral. What would you say to those folks?
Yeah, it goes in cycles, right? It goes in cycles. And, it was fantastic to buy real estate in 2016 up to about 2022 and stuff. And then, as you said, rates just went through the roof very, very short. And that, that put the brakes on a lot of deals and created all kinds of pain and headaches and so on. What I will say is you can still find real estate still makes sense. It's a different underwriting now than it was 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, because you're not going to exit them in 18 months and double your money, right? You're not going to get 3% interest rate. You're not going to there's not going to be a buyer on the other end waiting to buy something at a 3 or 4 or 5 cap. It's changed. And I think, as we have followed this industry of, well, you got to syndicate, you got to, you can double your money. There was I think there's so many people came into the space thinking that, well, we can just make a lot of money in a very short period of time. Well, you got to go back to talk to the guys that have been doing it for 40 years, right? I have a kind of a mentor of myself. He's a partner in a couple of deals. This guy's 82 years old, right? He's gone through the 2000.com collapse, which I don't know how much that impacted real estate, but obviously 2008. It's gone through this 2022, 23 stuff. Yeah, you can survive all that. The only thing is that you can't be so fearful that you stop buying because you're afraid of what may happen, right? For us, it was more of a shift. It wasn't that we stopped buying, but we changed strategy and asset class. So we weren't just sitting on our hands for, waiting for something to change, right?
Right. I like to think, it was easy in 2008 because 2008, all these banks failed and then everything just crumbled. So everyone can say, okay, 2008, 2009, everybody knows. But it was weird this time in that 2022, the rates started going up, 2023, all these failures started to happen, but it wasn't as publicized. And so over this 3-year period, you get like this 30% reduction in value in commercial real estate, which for the most part, if you're unfamiliar how this works, generally 70% loan, 30% equity. It just wiped out everybody's equity. And then when folks went to go refinance, all of a sudden they're upside down on their loans, whereas before they had this huge buffer, they felt very comfortable. I remember underwriting deals and thinking, okay, as long as the feds don't change or raise interest rates by over 200 bips, we're fine. And that was like common. The Wharton guys were doing that. The Harvard guys were doing that. Everybody was doing the 200 bips. That was like the thing. And to have it more than double of that just took everybody by surprise. And then we've had this weird place where people are losing money, but it's just kind of been the slow burn. Only felt when you go up to refinance and you just obliterate your cash flow. So you guys are underwriting deals differently. How are you doing your underwriting now?
Yeah. And I want to just reflect on what you just said, right? It's not being publicized to the level that, because everybody was losing their homes in 2008. This is equity getting wiped out, right? And, we had to sell some deals that we barely cleared the debt on. Well, that equity is wiped out too, right? So it has happened to, you, me, and a lot of people out there, right? So what changed for us, and it is, it's becoming incredibly more conservative around what the value add strategy is, right? Because the other thing that happened was, everything got more expensive: insurance, taxes, labor, repair, all the materials, everything else got increased. So now we're not using the old formulas of what it costs per year. It's $800 a year to maintain an apartment. No, it's a lot more expensive, right? Mm-hmm. So all these things become much. I think a lot of there was a lot of like, well, if you just tweak the numbers a little bit, this deal is going to work out, right? And now we're like, well, it did if you could sell it 2 years later, but if you couldn't, you had a problem, right? So now we're much more conservative on the underwrite, not assuming these crazy rent growth, assuming that expenses are going to, also stay high and elevated and continue to go up there, right? And say no to most deals, if not all deals. But it's been a couple of years since we've done the multifamily deals because of that, right? Because sellers' expectations are still too high because they have the debt that they need to clear, right? So they're hoping that they can sell it at something that still makes them recover their equity and so on, right? So it's more conservative, and it's also looking at other asset classes is really how we have changed our approach, So
what other asset classes are you guys looking at?
Yeah, so we started a couple of years ago. Actually, started 3 years ago. We started investing in light industrial, value add light industrial. So taking the idea from multifamily where you improve the property and raise rents and stuff like that. Well, we found and this has all been, I live in New Mexico now. It's all been in Albuquerque, New Mexico, because I wanted to get more local, because this strategy, you got to know the market really well. So we started doing this in Albuquerque because I had a partner that had done it for a while. So he came in and we bought some stuff there. And basically, yeah, you're still paying 7-8% in interest rate, but the cap rate you're buying this stuff at is like double digits, right? So suddenly you have so much more upside potential, and it doesn't need to be so pretty, right? An industrial tenant doesn't care about what do you call it, granite countertops and stuff. It just needs to be functional. It needs to have cooling and heating and lighting
Yeah.
and plumbing. It can be ugly as sin. It doesn't matter as long as it's functional. And they're only there from 8 to 5, right? And if something breaks, they tend to take care of themselves or even go as far as triple net and all this stuff. That just simplifies the management. It simplifies the underwriting and everything else. We've done 3 or 4 deals in that in the last few years that has worked out quite well for us.
We were looking at one of those, man caves, and those have seemed to done really well. The light industrial buildings where people can convert them into, mini warehouse, not
Flex space.
Flex space, yeah.
Yeah.
Flex space has done really well, and then we just ended up pivoting quite a bit to doing, we're redoing Palisades. So if you think of all the homes out in the Palisades, we're doing trying to do a few hundred of those, and doing in California the places that burned down. So with a local developer that's been in the space for 30 years, was the largest single family home builder in California and LA for a long time. So that's his space. And then got into tech. That's kind of where we ended up at. Because speaking of tech, everybody's talking about AI and real estate, but I haven't seen that much actually affect real estate. What are you seeing?
I mean, on the buying and selling side, it moves so slowly, right? I mean, if I'm underwriting a deal, I would use AI to maybe help with the analysis and pulling the data together. But that's, we don't do that every single day, right? That's and I can see, if you were really aggressive and you're out there buying a bunch of stuff, you can definitely develop some tools to help with your underwriting and pulling data and so on. The day-to-day operations, I think the area where it's AI can be most valuable is probably in property management, right? You are, so we're integrated in some areas where my partner is managing. Well, they use AppFolio, but AppFolio will actually now automatically, text back the tenant if there's a lead. So I think the speed of execution in the property management side is definitely being impacted by AI. It's not something I really do on a day-to-day basis. So I think there's definitely room there. But when it comes to like the buying and the selling, I don't know if that's really caught up yet. And you may have seen different things, but I haven't really seen it catch up yet,
The reason it can't catch up with the buying and the selling is right now, AI hallucinates, right? It's generative AI hallucinates. It makes stuff up. And when you're talking about title insurance and other things, if it's 99% correct, it's wrong.
Yeah, it's true.
It has to be 100% correct every single time. And when you got generative models that are 70% correct on their best day, you can't have that. So we've invented a system that gets rid of those hallucinations, identifies them, makes it 100% correct. But we'll see if that's, goes into the title space and disrupts that market, and then enables transactions to happen faster. Because one of the biggest problems for us in real estate was the 3-month-long transaction where you spend all this time just trying to get the documents. The money's there, the seller's ready, the buyers are ready. You're just waiting on this messy system that ends up making everybody mad by the time it gets closed. You're like,
I think it would be a huge disruption in because banks take 60 to 90 days to close a deal. That's insane, right? I mean, it shouldn't take that long, so
it shouldn't take. But with all the coffee breaks and board meetings and everything else, it just takes a while.
Right. So yeah, I think that's interesting. So it's not, and then as you know, with my 25 plus year IT career, when I stepped
Hmm.
away from that, I stepped away, right? I mean, it could be exciting if I was a young man. It could be exciting to get into AI and other things. But right now, I use it. I'm more of a consumer of it. And every time I was like, oh man, I should automate all these things and do these. Yeah, it sounds interesting, but then I'm like, not really that interested in doing it.
Yeah.
So,
It, yeah, it's funny. I use it extensively and I still don't automate everything because it's like, it's just a marginal improvement. I like things that are really disruptive and completely change it. And, that's just kind of where we're at. It's just kind of where we're at. Society's still not sure what to do with AI
right.
yet. So, so you've spent years now, in working with mentors like Rockleaf and others, learning, honing, creating these skill sets. I love your mindset about, hey, look, if multifamily is not the right thing, or we can still do multifamily deals, but they need to look like this. So we're going to pivot a little bit because light industrial over here is doing super well, and there's a market for it, and it actually makes money, because if it doesn't make money outside of 2020 to 2022, it doesn't work. You can do stuff that doesn't make money in 2020 and 2022 because people are just going to pay ridiculous money for it anyways. Outside of that, like it has to make money. It has to be a good deal. Um, you really seem like you kind of mastered this. And what are you doing with that mastery?
Yeah. The mastery there is so when I went from, this quote unquote secure W-2 income to real estate investing and stuff, I realized that I couldn't bet my financial future just on real estate, right? I mean,
Hmm.
I didn't know what was going to happen in 22 or 23, but I was like, yeah, if I can't like syndicate a deal every 3 months, I'm not going to make enough money to not have a job. So I was like, I need to I need to build my own portfolio. So we have apartments that just me and my wife owns, right? I need to
Hmm.
do some joint ventures that are long-term investments. But then I also need to find another stream, more active income, right? I need to find a stream of active income, not a 9 to 5 job because I had that, but I need to find a stream. And what naturally, what naturally evolved to was real estate mentoring, right? Helping as I was getting more experience and doing a bunch of deals, helping that newer investor that wanted to get into it. That was fulfilling and valuable, and gave me, I found partners and stuff that way. But then as the real estate space changed, a lot of those people stopped looking to buy real estate, right? Because
Yeah.
they looked at it for 5 minutes, like, oh crap, this doesn't work, and they moved on to something else. So it's like, oh, I got to broaden my skills and how I serve people. So then I really started focusing more on the quote unquote mindset coaching, right? Making sure that people have the right vision for their future, the right productivity, courage, influence, and purpose and so on. Because it doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur or a W-2 employee or whatever, people always want to move to that next level, right? Leadership and so on. So that's what I started focusing on, to just really help people get more out of their life, right? Be more successful and stop kidding themselves and stop dreaming, actually start taking action towards their dream life, right? And that has helped people, move into real estate. It helped people move towards executive leadership or leave their job and do something completely different, right? And that's incredibly valuable because I've been investing in coaches for the last 6, 7 years, right? And I know the value of my coach. And so I've been paying that forward to a lot of different people. So that's been the active income. So that has helped me, when real estate were harder to do, I still make money doing the coaching and the mentoring and so on. So that's kind of how that has helped me stay, engaged and also making income in the last several years.
One of the things I have learned to admire, is or are just people who've grown up in the tech world where there's a formula or a sequence to success, right? For your product that you're building, A plus B equals C. There's a code that works. And when you do the code wrong, you miss a little thing on it, it breaks, right? And if you take that mindset that you have to real estate and you say, okay, you can do all these things, but you forget this comma or you forget this parentheses or this, there's a TypeScript error. All of a sudden the entire thing breaks. And so you can't, you said earlier, you can't just fudge the numbers a little bit to make it look good on paper because that's the wrong sequence. That's the wrong code for success. And I have found that a lot of people came out of the tech world, make really good coaches because they look at it like, okay, here's the sequence, here's the code. You deviate from the code, it breaks. You're going to lose all your money, even if it's a slight deviation, a single parentheses, paragraph, whatever, capitalized letter when it should be lowercase, anything like that gets wrong and you just blow yourself up. So get it right. Here's the exact sequence. Follow the sequence to the T, and it works every single time. And that's how code is. If it's exact and perfect, it works every single time, no matter what.
Absolutely.
And so is that how, when you design your coaching, your high performance coaching with people, I don't know if you can share some of your frameworks that you use to help them. What are you using? What sequence are you using to help them get out of the regular mindset and be successful in a place where others are not?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because what you described, right, is that left brain thinking, the logical thinking of, A leads to B leads to C and so on. And I do use that too, but that's more in consulting, right? Consulting is, hey, let me help you build the systems and the processes, whatever it's going to take your business forward. When it comes to coaching and mindset coaching, that's a much more like intuitive connection to the emotion and the desires and the purpose that people have in them, right? So it was a bit of a shift for me coming from a left brain kind of logical way of thinking to actually get more connected. But I think as we get older, we've experienced so many things that we can connect to that, right? So the framework, and coaching is not about selling a framework. Coaching is about selling an outcome, right? But if we were talking about framework, it always starts with that, not necessarily goals, because everybody has goals and they just randomly decided on a goal. We got to get back to vision and clarity. What's truly important in your life and why do you want to move towards this, right? And that's more emotional. It's more like experience based. It's more relationship based, right? Once we get really clear on that, then we can start putting the goals and the actions in place for that, right? But most people think, well, I want to make $1 million. Like, okay, why? Well, because it sounds good or something like that.
Yeah,
So
that's a really cool number.
Yeah. So it's a lot about really connecting with it, and then also figuring out like what are all the ways that we self-sabotage and hold ourselves back, or do all these things that doesn't even move us forward, right? Being procrastinating or working on the wrong things, or all these, are not having support from spouses or other things. So there's so many layers to unpack, but we got to get clear on what we want first. Otherwise, there's no point doing anything.
Clarity is power.
That's right.
Clarity is power. It's amazing how much we go through life without clarity on where we're going or what we're doing. Especially if you're in a W-2 job, it's easy to kind of lose yourself in the day-to-day grind, and and eventually you start telling yourself it's wrong to think of doing anything else other than the day-to-day grind, because pick your reason, right? Pick your reason. I know my in-laws, 30 years or 45 years working for the government, and it's like, Sam, why would you want to start a company? That's a terrible idea. Like, well, I've been doing this for 8 years. Sometimes it is terrible. Other times it's fantastic.
Right.
Either way, it provides meaning to my life, and I love doing it.
Right.
So,
and you don't want to, wake up after 45 years of working for somebody else and say, what could I've done? Right. I mean, what opportunities did I miss by not taking some risk?
But yeah, it's been really great talking to you. People who are listening here and thinking, I want somebody who can understand both the left and the right brain thinking on how to become a high performance person, how to grow, how to do better, how to get my life right. and get out of the W-2 grind or just be a better real estate investor, how do they reach you?
The best place is just my personal website. It's, Jens Nielsen, so JENSNIELSEN.US. So jensnielsen.us. I think there's a vision building worksheet will pop up. So if you want to work on your vision, complete that, download that. And there's also a link to my calendar so people can book, a quick 20-minute call if they want to connect with me and learn more about my either real estate investing, coaching, mentoring, whatever, or just chat. I love to do that.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to share that's in the show notes. Jens, thank you so much for being on the show. And folks, we'll see you again next time. If this episode shifted your thinking, then share it with someone bold. And remember, capital is a tool. Use it to build a world you are proud to live in.